Hi. The easiest way to make sense of electrolytes is to demystify them. First of all, what does the word electrolytes mean? People throw this word around, you've probably seen it a lot. So, the four major electrolytes within the body are sodium, potassium, magnesium, and calcium. Once you stop talking about electrolytes and you talk about these in their definitive forms, suddenly it becomes a little bit easier to imagine where you're going to get these sources of electrolytes. Sodium, or basic table salt, is available most places. Potassium is available in a lot of the foods that are problematic for keto, which is why sometimes people reference potassium as being a problem with keto because a lot of the sources, like sweet potatoes or white potatoes, are kind of extremely high carbs. So to get enough potassium from those sources, you would have way too many carbs to fit inside the ketogenic diet. Then you look at things like calcium, which is readily available in some leafy greens, for example, baby spinach, and magnesium, which again is pretty common in green leafy vegetables. One other common place that you'll hear people reference getting their electrolytes that I think is a great idea is pickle juice. Pickle juice has been shown to contain safe amounts of all four of those. Now, when I say safe amounts, it's important to know that with electrolytes, you can actually do a little bit of damage here. Because people tend to advise taking these electrolyte supplements like potassium and magnesium, which can have renal implications as far as your kidneys go, and then eventually affect your heart. And potassium and sodium aren't absolute values, they work as a ratio of one to the other. So excessive potassium can affect the function of sodium and vice versa. So you want to be careful taking these supplements without involving your doctor in the conversation or prematurely taking these supplements if you're not having problems with deficiencies. So some of the signs of deficiency of electrolytes are headaches, cramping, irritability, and low energy. So if you're experiencing these sort of things, maybe we do need to talk about your electrolyte issue. So what if you're averse to the idea of drinking pickle juice or just don't have a lot of dill pickles around? I recommend taking a Centrum 1 a day. It's a multivitamin that contains two of the four electrolytes, and I feel that most people can get sodium by salting their food properly. The other good source of potassium that I feel is reasonably safe is to get light salt, which contains potassium chloride. And so if you salt your food with light salt, it's a mixture of sodium chloride and potassium chloride that gives you the sodium and potassium you need. And I think that you should get the calcium and magnesium you need from leafy greens and other green vegetables ideally. But a Centrum is a good way to supplement the amount of these different nutrients that you need in your diet and to get them up to acceptable levels, especially if you don't like drinking something like pickle juice. Now, I want to talk a minute about things like the Gatorade and Propel Zeros and the Mio electrolytes. Although these do contain electrolytes, if you look closely at the amount that you need to consume, you end up drinking almost all of your fluids in these to get a recommended daily amount. So relying on these electrolyte beverages to give you your electrolytes is probably overstating their benefit. But there is some efficiency to using something like a Pedialyte, especially if you're experiencing cramping or low energy and you acutely want these things available within your body to solve some of the symptoms that may be caused by keto flu. But again, you can get yourself into this keto flu issue by not having enough greens, by trying to avoid carbs early on, and looking at lettuce like it's the devil. So try to eat some leafy greens, and that will address a lot of it. Make sure that you're salting your food. Consider using light salt to get those up. Involve your doctor, especially if you've ever had kidney problems or have heart problems. You want to involve your doctor in conversations that revolve around electrolytes, especially if you think that you might be having an imbalance. And the other thing that I need to talk about if we're talking about electrolytes is that since a lot of people are getting these electrolytes in the form of fluids, and then a big thing that people talk about when they talk about keto is hydration, hydration, hydration. Be aware that every time you urinate, you're passing some of your salts, some of your electrolytes. So if you're urinating constantly, you need to replenish those electrolytes more than somebody that's not overhydrating. And the best way to tell if you're overhydrating is to look at the color of your urine. If you're peeing clear, you're probably consuming too much water, and you need to probably slow down on the hydration because you're getting into a condition where your deficiency in electrolytes might be caused by overhydration, not the ketogenic diet. However, if your peeing still contains a pale to somewhat solid yellow color, and yet you're experiencing cramps, low energy, irritability, or headaches, you might want to consider whether or not you need some leafy greens, whether or not you've been salting your food. You may want to consider something like a Pedialyte or a Gatorade Zero or Propel to elevate your electrolytes to solve the symptoms. Another source of this is something like emergency. So you can look at any of these different sources. Again, I'm not a doctor, and I really think that with electrolytes, this is one of the most problematic areas. I've seen people talk about consuming that Himalayan pink salt on all of their food in excessive quantities. If you start noticing that your feet or hands are swelling, you're consuming way too much salt. So between people recommending kind of too much hydration and people recommending too much salt, people recommending things like going on potassium supplements without contacting their doctor, especially if they've had cardiac issues or renal issues in the past. And most people with prediabetes or type 2 diabetes have some sort of renal impairment, kidney impairment. So if you have blood sugar issues, you may want to talk to your doctor, even if you've never been told that you have low kidney function or slightly subclinical kidney function. All of these things are things to consider with your doctor. Now, I'm not a doctor. I'm telling you these are things to bring up with your doctor. And so especially since we're talking about health consequences today, I wanted to underline that fact. So empower yourself. Remember that the 4 electrolytes you need to worry about: sodium, which is in table salt; potassium, which a good source would be to switch to light salt; calcium and magnesium, which are readily available in leafy greens, and that's my preferred source of these. However, if you want to cover your bases, salt your food and maybe consider a multivitamin. All right, that's all for today. I love you guys, and I wish you the best of luck on your journeys.